Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, I'm talking about the new best grip to use in Modern Warfare and Warzone. In the most recent patch that came out, they actually nerfed the Merc foregrip. They reduced the movement speed bonus that it gave, which to me makes the Merc foregrip about equal, if not worse than that of the Commando and the Ranger. In today's video, I'm talking about all the stats of these grips, comparing them head to head as far as the biggest difference was between what each grip does as far as your strafe speed, your aiming stability, your aim down sight time. What is the difference between those three grips in those three attachment stats? Then obviously we're going to take a look at the guns and then figuring out which grip is actually the best on what gun, because every single grip has its benefit. Like obviously the Merc has improved hip fire, the Ranger has obviously improved stability, and obviously with the Commando has improved stabilization. So each one does its own unique thing that's excellent, but as far as which is actually the best, you have to kind of test, and we're going to be showcasing that in today's video. So if you guys learn anything that does help you make a better class setup, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. So like I said, the Merc foregrip went from 4% faster movement speed to 1% slower, which is a 5% movement speed difference. In pretty much every video I've posted recently, I said the Merc foregrip was the best grip to use due to the fact that it improved your movement speed. They obviously took that away. You guys can see a little video clip on the screen. The base MP5 versus the Merc foregrip, it is now 1% slower. So with that, also about the Ranger foregrip is also 1% slower. It's about a little bit slower than the Merc foregrip at like 1.3%, which the Merc's only 1% slower. So they kind of equal there too. Obviously hidden stats that aren't listed on the attachment card, which I'm not a fan of. Like I said, along with the Commando, it also has the slowest strafe speed, slower than that of the Merc and the Ranger. So as far as some of your stats, the movement speed, the Merc and the Ranger are identical. The Commando is the slowest. As far as your strafe speed, the Merc and the Ranger are identical. The Commando once again being the slowest. And as far as your aim down sight time, the Merc and the Ranger are a 4 to 5 millisecond difference back and forth. One is better, one is worse. So they pretty much are equal as far as aim down sight time, as far as strafe speed. They equal out. The biggest factor is obviously that Merc foregrip has the best hip fire accuracy, which obviously is going to be only best used with shotguns and obviously SMGs, which have better hip fire. So to me, we're going to talk about obviously looking at each individual weapon, which is the best foregrip as far as the recoil, which is going to help you the most as far as what is the best recoil for each individual weapon. So the 7 weapons we take a look at to kind of diverse which one is best. We're looking at the MP7, the MP5, the Grau, the Kilo, the M4, the Bruin, and the M13. The first gun that I want to take a look at is obviously the most popular ones. The MP5 SMG, you guys will be able to see on the screen right now. You guys will see the base, the Commando, the Merc, and then the Ranger. With the base, the recoil pattern is pretty terrible. Obviously, that Commando definitely improves. With the Commando, obviously improves your vertical recoil by a little bit as well, which is excellent for the Commando. You guys will see the Merc actually is the best foregrip for the MP5, has the best recoil pattern and the least vertical kick, which to me on the MP5 is excellent because it also improves your hip fire. So as far as what is the best grip for the MP5, I'm going to take the Merc as number 1. The Commando definitely has a little bit more stable recoil pattern than the Ranger. Similar in recoil, so I definitely think Commando's number 2, Ranger, is going to be the worst for the MP5. The next gun we take a look at is obviously the M4, probably the most popular assault rifle. You can see the base recoil pattern is actually pretty predictable. It's up and then pulls a little bit to the right. With the Commando, it only improves the stability a little bit. Didn't really have a big effect on anything other than the stability being a little bit better. Obviously, the biggest factor looking at that Merc and the Ranger, for me, the thing I'll note most between the Merc and the Ranger is the Ranger has a little bit more stable recoil. So as far as your left to right variance, as far as how hard it kicks left to right and how much better the Ranger is vertically, I definitely think it has that big advantage over the Merc. The Merc is going to have a little bit less vertical kicks. So as far as what is best for the M4, which has, in my opinion, one of the worst recoil patterns, I'm going to be recommending obviously that Ranger because it's also going to improve your stability, which is definitely something that's needed on a assault rifle. But the Merc and the Ranger are almost identical, but like I said, just when we talk about that hip fire versus the stability, it's going to help a lot more on your assault rifles. The next one to take a look at is obviously which gun is the most on the rise right now in Warzone. Is obviously going to be the Kilo 141. Obviously you have the base, the Commando, the Merc, and the Ranger. This one is obviously not as big a recoil pattern. Kind of hard to really notice the difference for me. If I actually take a look at it, I definitely think the Ranger is number 1. It has almost identical vertical kick as the Merc, but it looks to have a little bit better stability. And in my experience testing it, the first few shots with the Ranger have a little bit better recoil than that of the Merc, which to me is what's going to help you have the best accuracy. So The biggest factor you'll take a note here, once again, is with that Commando, it's definitely taking third again. Obviously has the worst mobility, but when you actually take a look at the recoil patterns, it's once again on the back end, with the Ranger being number 1 again. The next gun we're taking a look at is my favorite gun, obviously the Grau 5.56. I definitely still think it's a popular weapon, definitely in multiplayer. As far as the biggest factor in comparing the recoil patterns, I definitely think the Commando is probably going to be best here, just because the Ranger is obviously going to lower your aim down sight time, which I think is best for the Grau. So I definitely don't think the Commando is going to take number 1. The recoil pattern is purely vertical only. Obviously, with that Commando improving the stabilization, it's going to help your overall accuracy, in my opinion, better than that of the Ranger. Obviously, I'm going to rank the Ranger number 2 behind it. If you can tell by looking at the recoil pattern, also improves your stability. But I think the Commando definitely is best for the Grau. And this is the first time I'm going to say it's probably the best attachment to use out of all the 3 on a gun. The next gun we're taking a look at is obviously the Bruin Mark 9. Definitely still a top tier gun in the game for sure. You guys can take a look at the recoil pattern of the base versus the Commando. The Commando really does absolutely nothing on the Bruin, once again making it the 3rd worst grip to use. If you take a look at the difference in the Merc and the Ranger, once again has the same basic pattern. The Ranger looks to have a little bit more stable recoil pattern. In exchange, you're getting a better stability, which for me on the Bruin, the aiming stability is definitely one of the worst things about it. So to improve that, I definitely think the Ranger is once again number 1 for this gun. Taking a look at the M13, which to me is still a excellent assault rifle. I was actually thoroughly enjoying using it today. The base recoil pattern is pretty predictable, similar to the M4, goes up and to the right. The Commando definitely improves that a little bit. The biggest factor you'll see is if you take a look at that Ranger recoil pattern, it's almost in a perfectly straight line, obviously just curving a little bit. And you can see with the Merc foregrip, it has a little bit of not as good a recoil off initially. Once again, Ranger is taking number 1 for the M13. And the last gun to take a look at is obviously that MP7. Definitely think these 3 do basically the same thing for the MP7. It's probably the most accurate SMG. They don't really have a big difference. For me, I'm going to be taking the Ranger. I'm going to be taking the Ranger due to it has the same thing as the Commando, basically a similar recoil pattern, similar obviously in stability, but obviously has a little bit better mobility in my opinion. Obviously lower aim down sight time and a faster straight speed, which the MP7 is best. So I think the Ranger is once again best obviously for the MP7. So the one thing you'll note here is on 5 out of the 7 weapons, I recommended the Ranger as the best, and on the other 2 was Merc and Commando. So each gun individually is different, but the thing here is when this game first came out, I think the Ranger was absolutely the number 1 foregrip to use. Once again, I think we're back in that boat. The Ranger is the new best grip to use out of every single weapon. I definitely think it's probably going to give the best recoil pattern. The biggest factor for me is what you're stacking it with. Obviously, you take that Bruin, you take that Kilo, you take that M13 where you're running that VLK sight. That completely is going to change my opinion, because the Bruin and the M13 and the Kilo is probably, I would say 80 to 90% of your class subs is using that VLK sight, which lowers your aim down sight time as well, which if you stack with that Ranger, in my opinion, is going to give you excellent recoil, but your mobility is going to go down by a lot. So I definitely think that's where the biggest factor is what grip is best for you. It's once you take a look at that best class setup, the Ranger is going to be best stacked by itself. If you're stacking the VLK sight on there to play Warzone with, the Commando is obviously going to be your best grip, because stacking with the VLK sight is going to give you the best stability, which is obviously going to give you the best recoil pattern possible. So that's pretty much it. The biggest factor for me is when you actually compare the mobility stats, the Commando is the worst by far, which to me is the biggest factor. Obviously has no negate on your aim down sight speed, which if you're an aggressive player is probably the best thing to use. But to me, the Ranger, just on a lot of the guns I tested, had the best recoil pattern. The difference in aim down sight time, the difference in the stray speed is very minimal. In Warzone, you're mainly fighting long range fights, not really up close. So that hip fire improvement of the Merc is pretty much useless in Warzone. So the Ranger is going to be the best grip to use probably on 90% of your guns in Warzone. As far as the difference in idle sway between that of the Commando and the Ranger, it's not even noticeable. You guys definitely will not notice. There's no real big difference. Obviously, the idle sway improvement is going to help a little bit, but not much. So as far as what is the best grip, I personally am going to start using the Ranger foregrip on pretty much every single class setup that I'm using, just due to the fact that I think it has the best recoil pattern, and it has obviously a little bit better stats mobility category than that of the Commando. So that's pretty much it for the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Make sure you guys leave a comment down below which grip you guys personally use. Leave a like if this video did help you guys learn something new. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Use my discount code on all of your scuff and GFUEL purchases. The best and only code to use is code Trapgod. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys in the next video.